Are you a leader who's struggling to retain your new hires? Well, if this is you, make sure you stick around for 5 helpful strategies to retain your new employees for the long haul. Welcome back to my show where I help high achievers increase profitability through employee performance. Make sure you like and subscribe just below this video because each and every Wednesday I have a new helpful episode coming your way. So as a leader, you've probably spent time, money, and energy in the recruiting process for new employees. And there is little more frustrating when those employees, they don't stick around, when they walk out the door after you've invested so much time and resources in training them. Sometimes leaders get really creative when it comes to retaining new employees. In fact, check out how Michael Scott did it on The Office.
The city's laid out from east to west, and our public parks and libraries are truly the best. Call poison control if you're bit by a spider, but check that it's covered by your healthcare provider. Plenty of space in the parking lot, but the little cars don't win the compact spot. Spot! Snack attack time. Don't lose your head. We like Cuginos for the tasty bread.
So our research shows the average cost of turnover for an employee is over $235,975 per employee per year. And a big chunk of that comes from recruiting, retraining, and the whole rehiring process, which again, our research shows is over $67,500 per employee for just that piece of the puzzle. So you can really see how it starts to add up over time. And this is a big enough issue that every single organization really can benefit from paying some attention, dedicating some focused resources, and addressing it. Now, leaders often attempt to resolve employee turnover among new hires with the onboarding process, but they make the big mistake of focusing on onboarding as orientation, right? You come in, we give you a pamphlet, you watch a pre-recorded video that's not very engaging, and then you just set them off about their merry way. What we're talking about here is starting your employees off on a much better foot than just an orientation, an onboarding style of process and key strategies that will make them productive and successful over the long haul. So in other words, we're not focusing on onboarding as orientation, we're focusing on onboarding as a success path and a process to ensure that not only are new employees sticking around and being productive, that they're going to be successful for you for the long haul. Now, when it comes to onboarding, it's really important to look at the research because what you see quickly is how effective a great onboarding process can be for retaining your top talent. Here's one statistic that you need to be aware of. 69% of employees who have a positive onboarding experience are much more likely to remain with the employer for 3 years. That's right. You invest a little bit of time in an onboarding process that makes sense for the employee and the job they're going to do and the culture that you have, and it can pay off over 3 years of dedication. How's that sound? Also, it's important to remember that companies that focus on onboarding actually retain 50% more employees than companies that don't. Think about that for a second. Your competition probably ignoring this process, trying to knock out the onboarding through just a little one-day orientation, or maybe just doing it virtually through pre-recorded videos and a handbook. Think about that. You're going to have a competitive advantage over them because you're going to retain 50% more of your employees than them. In fact, you can go pick off, think about it, you're going to go out there and pick off some of their top talent and bring them into your organization because they're not going to have a great start in their organization and they're going to be searching for a better opportunity, and that could be you. So before I get into the strategies to retain your new employees, it's helpful to put a little bit of a framework around this because what you really need to understand here is why we're doing this in the first place. It's not just enough to do it because it's the right thing to do. It's also important to understand how it impacts the bottom line of the company. Number one, it's important to get the new hires productive as possible because one, you're going to be generating a return on their work and the investment that you're making in them to the bottom line, right? You're pouring resources into these employees to get them up to speed. And that's really important for bottom line productivity. And two, you want to retain them for the long haul. And so the faster they become more productive, they're going to feel more engaged in the mission of the company, and they're going to want to stick around because they're a part of the team's mission. So your job here is to decrease the time it takes to get them on board and productive. Now, there's a great structure, a great framework put forth by Bernson by Deloitte. And I want to share this little diagram with you now that you can keep in your mind as you begin to conceptualize how to keep your new hires happy, engaged, and around for the long haul. So you can see on the left-hand side of this graph, this is an employee's economic value to the organization. Now, this is what they contribute. This is their productivity levels. On the bottom part of this graph, you see time. This is the time it takes. And as they say, time is money. So the further you get out in the employee's tenure, you want to make sure that you're working your way up the employee contribution line. This is how much they're able to contribute over time. You can see in the bottom, below the arrow, that is the investment zone. That's the retraining that you and your employees are putting in. That's the time that gets them to get up to speed. That's all the time and money that you're investing into new hires and in the onboarding process. And the key is you want to get above that line into the return zone, which is where they're benefiting the organization, right? You want to get above that to the training and the new assignments and all the new projects. And all of that is where the magic happens with new hires. So when you're talking to your team out there, or even when you bring an employee in and you're explaining to them, hey, we want to get you up to speed as quickly as possible because we want you to understand the investment zone versus the return zone. And we're willing as a company to make these investments in you from an onboarding standpoint. Make sure that you get to speed as quickly as possible. But we want to get you to that return zone as quickly as possible because one, you're going to feel better as an employee because you're delivering for us, right? And that includes productivity, new ideas, positive morale, impact, and all those things. And that makes a big difference to the organization. And they're going to feel like they're contributing and ultimately making a positive contribution, and that will help retain them inside your organization. So now let's dig into 5 quick strategies that you can use to retain your new employees in your organization and get them from the investment zone to the return zone for your company as quickly as possible. Number 1 is to simply tell them what a good job looks like. So many times employees start an organization and they think they're doing their job the best they can, but it's based on bosses and managers and corporate cultures that they had in the past. Or if they're right out of college, they may be a blank slate, a blank canvas, and they've never had that kind of instruction or direction before. And so it's so important early on to tell them what your expectations are, what your standards are, and how they can best contribute to that. When you don't share that, maybe they spin their wheels, they get really frustrated, they do the job they think's a great job, and maybe it doesn't hit a certain standard, or maybe even worse, they go too far, they go too deep. So many new hires feel like they have a lot to prove, so they go above and beyond. And if this continues, it can burn themselves out. And so it's important to make sure that you're defining what a good job looks like right out of the gate. Number 2 is to show them how things work. It's as simple as that. So I didn't say tell them how things work, show them how things work inside your organization. Have them sit with someone who's been working in the company for a long time. Allow them to be introduced to other people inside the organization. Let them follow someone through their workflow, because starting day one is like drinking from a fire hose. And it's such a critical moment because how you start with someone is ultimately how you finish with them. And so it's so important to get them started off on the right foot. So I really like this idea of having them sit with a veteran. So they're going to learn where the copiers are. They're going to learn where the coffee pots are. They're going to learn about the parking, right? All the essential things. They're going to learn about what time people usually leave for their workday and how the travel system works and all these things that can be so frustrating and prevent people from reaching increased productivity early on can simply be addressed by just showing them how things work inside your organization. Number 3 is to give them lots of feedback. People starting out new in a company often need a lot of encouragement, right? Because they're facing day one jitters, anxiety, not knowing what a good job looks like inside the organization. These are all things that they face early on. It can become demoralizing. And if we don't get it corrected early and fast, this can lead to their departure as soon as the first recruiter calls. So definitely establish 30, 60, and 90-day check-ins. And these are pretty standard with a lot of organizations, yet many don't even do those. So schedule those on the calendar immediately. Another is to schedule weekly check-ins with their boss, okay? And so if you're the boss, make sure you're getting those weekly check-ins on their calendar to give them feedback. Now, you may not have lots of time to spend with them, and that's okay. In these sessions, allow them to show up and just to share with you what's going on, but provide that connectivity point, which will help keep them aligned to the mission and goals and allow them to ramp up to higher levels of production and job satisfaction even faster. Number 4 is to line up a few easy wins, because easy wins build more momentum. When you line up a few easy wins for someone, maybe it's just, hey, like if you're a sales leader, maybe bring them into a new account that's ready to start doing business. Allow them to go through that process. Maybe it's achieving a small project, biting it off and tackling it A to Z to really show what they can do. Maybe it's even small stuff like designing a great PowerPoint or delivering a small presentation on something that they learned when they were in their previous company. But allow them to build up that confidence, because that will allow them to feel part of the team and like they're contributing early on, and they'll be more likely to initiate new conversations and also to bite off new projects and tackle bigger things than they may would have otherwise. Number 5 is to help them establish productive relationships. Now, one of the strategies that I don't recommend for this is doing what Michael Scott did on The Office with the team volleyball meet.
Oh, Kevin, come on!
Blind?
I could have gotten
Can you
that,
see
idiot!
things
Not
with your
a
eyeballs?
sledgehammer! Come on, people. We need to get our heads in the game. Let's focus. Come on, you're better than this. I am better than this. Phyllis, why are you sitting on the ground?
We've been out here for a while. I don't need this.
So instead of team volleyball, give the new hire a list of 10 to 20 people that they need to meet with in the first 2 weeks inside your organization. Have them just have 15-minute meet and greet calls, or even better yet, meetings in person. These are key people that are going to be customers of theirs inside the organization or even external, and key suppliers or key inputs to projects that they're working on. This instantly gets them plugged in. And when you have these kinds of meetings, it allows those relationships to foster and be nurtured, and then give them some guidance in those meetings. Say, hey, I want you to introduce yourself to the person, but also ask them questions about their pain points. I think that's right. Have them ask other teams inside the organization what they're struggling with, and how they can contribute and help, and what their perceptions are of the team, and how they can be most successful in collaborating with them in the future. This will give them a much more integrated, satisfying experience inside your organization, just by connecting them and allowing them to proactively set up these meetings and have these calls. It will allow them to set the proverbial table for success going forward. So to quickly review, number 1, tell them what a good job looks like. Number 2, show them how things work. Number 3, give them lots of feedback. Don't forget the 30, 60, 90-day check-ins, but also the weekly one-on-one connections to make sure that they're aligned to your goals. Number 4, line up the easy wins early for them, because that will allow them to generate more momentum. Number 5 is to help them establish relationships right out of the gate. So your next step is to go out and apply one of these strategies. You're probably going to go out and you're recruiting and you're hiring somebody new that's going to start very soon. Note one of these key ideas and apply it, and notice how much more productivity they deliver on, and also how much longer they stick around. Now, if you'd really like to retain your top talent, make sure you stick around for the strategies that I have for you in the next video.